You may not know much about UCLA football, but they're in LA along with USC, and they've got a coach in Deshaun Foster who's happy, and he's excited to be there. Although the fans may not feel the same way by the end of this season. So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, guys. If you watch Big Ten Media Days, you definitely got that reference, but welcome to the channel nonetheless. We're excited to break down the UCLA Bruins, their schedule and prediction for this 2024 season. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com, home to our expert picks, some of the best spread picks in the entire country for one of the lowest prices in the entire country. We do not want you to miss out, guys, beating out over 80% of the national handicappers each of the last 6 years. So go check it out. The links for that, our exclusive newsletters, and all the other exclusive content there for you in the description below. We want you to take advantage of it and become a member of our GE Nation. So UCLA, man, it could be a rough year for them. Year one under Deshaun Foster. Chip Kelly surprising a few people by bolting UCLA to become the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. This is a Bruins team that, was on a pretty good streak. 3 consecutive winning seasons. Last year going 8-5. It was their third straight season with at least 8 wins. Won their bowl game. Things were looking good. Chip Kelly leaves. Deshaun Foster kind of thrust in there, although he does have plenty of experience. He was the running backs coach with the Bruins for the last 7 years. So he's familiar with the program. He's familiar with the culture and the players. I thought it was actually a fine hire. I think in time it will pan out well for UCLA. But it may not happen in year one for multiple different reasons. But we'll start with the roster, the offense. There's more talent there than people realize, but how quickly does it all come together? I will say their offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy, is one of the best offseason hires no one's talking about. This guy was phenomenal in Kansas City, helped develop Patrick Mahomes, can't get a head coaching job anywhere, which is ridiculous, but comes to UCLA as the offensive coordinator, and I think will do very well here. But Ethan Garbers is no Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, he's solid, over 1,100 yards, only 3 interceptions last year, but still needs some work. TJ Harden, over 800 rushing yards last year, does return at running back. Their top 3 pass catchers do return for UCLA, led by Logan Loya. So this is a team that has a very capable quarterback, a very solid running back, their top 3 wide receivers, and an offensive line returning that has 101 combined starts and will improve after giving up 42 sacks last year. The Bruins only averaged 26.5 points per game last year. I expect those numbers to actually decrease a little bit, but again, they'll be a little bit better off than people realize. Defensively, that's the concern for me. 5 starters are back for UCLA on that side of the ball. They only gave up 18.4 points per game, only 302 yards per game, only 81 rushing yards per game. They were a very good defense. Their defensive coordinator, D'Anton Lynn, had this team as a top 10 defensive unit. But D'Anton Lynn is gone. He is now the defensive coordinator at USC. You went to an interconference rival within your same state, within your same city. That hurt. They lose 3 of their top 5 tacklers from last year, including their star, Laiatu Latu, 13 sacks last season. The Bruins are now on their 4th defensive coordinator in the last 4 years. Only 15.5 of the 43 sacks that they had last year return this season. They do have a solid linebacking core led by Kane Medrano. They add transfers in, such as KJ Wallace. But again, this is a team that loses so much experience. We mentioned the sacks. We mentioned the defensive line that was responsible for so many sacks. They lose 27 of them from last season. This is a team that defensively is going to take a major step back, and a team as a whole that's going to take a major step back because they have questions on the roster, because they have questions under a first-year head coach, because they have questions in a new conference, their first year in the Big Ten, and because their schedule is just so dang difficult. Look at what UCLA is up against. They have arguably one of the toughest 3-game stretches of any team in the entire season, where they have to go to LSU, play Oregon, and then on the road to Penn State in a 3-week stretch from September 21st to October 5th. Then the month of November, absolutely brutal. Nebraska, Iowa, Washington, USC, Fresno State. They have a lot of difficult games this season. And there's a good chance that the Bruins will be underdogs in as many as 8, 9 games this year. That's just the nature of the beast. I'll tell you right now, I think they start 2-0. So they're defying the odds early. I think they can beat Hawaii, although the Rainbow Warriors are certainly improving and will not just, give up in this game. They're going to give UCLA a pretty big fight. But I think the Bruins have enough to get the job done. They're 1-0. Coming out of an early bye week, they play Indiana at home. I think they win that game. The Hoosiers in a first-year head coach under Curt Cignetti, they're going to go through some growing pains with their first-year coach and all the transfers he's bringing in. Off that week of rest, even though it's in week 2, not going to be that tired yet. Home field advantage plays a role here, even though UCLA doesn't have a great one as always. I think they're enough to beat Indiana, who, again, is still going to struggle from time to time. A lot of changes here, going to give the edge to the Bruins. Then that tough 3-game stretch, so losing all 3. They're not beating LSU in Death Valley. It's just not happening. Garrett Nussmeier, very strong offense. New defensive coordinator for LSU and Blake Baker is going to do extremely well, especially with a strong front 7. They're going to lose the Tigers. They're going to get torched by Oregon. They've lost 10 of the last 11 to the Ducks, including 4 straight, in Oregon, an absolute national title contender this season. And then on the road to Happy Valley. So you think about that. UCLA is going to go down to Baton Rouge, all the way back to LA to play Oregon, then all the way out to Happy Valley. So much travel for UCLA this year. Not to mention they play all the way in Hawaii in week 1. They're going to lose to Penn State, though. Happy Valley, one of the most difficult places to play in the country. Penn State's going to force UCLA to win the game through the air. They're going to force UCLA to win it through Ethan Garbers. I don't think he's able to do that because Penn State has one of the best rushing defenses in the nation. Did last year, will again this year. UCLA cannot become one-dimensional on offense. They will struggle in this environment. And they go from 2-0 to 2-3 just like that. They come back home to Minnesota. A winnable game, sure. But I think they fall short to the Golden Gophers. I think Minnesota improves offensively with their transfer quarterback, Max Brosmer. They have their leading rusher returning, their leading wide receiver returning. The defense was not great last year. Wasn't what we thought they'd be, but they should take a pretty big step forward this season under P.J. Fleck. They've got the head coaching advantage. They've got the arguably offensive advantage. Honestly, you could argue that Minnesota owns the edge in every aspect of this game with the exception of home field advantage, and the Golden Gophers can overcome that. So they drop that game to Minnesota and then have to go all the way back out to the East Coast to take on Rutgers. I mean, how ridiculous is this? Seriously, every other game is a massive, massive road trip for UCLA. They do not get a break. So now they're going all the way out to Rutgers, a Rutgers team where, they return 16 starters. They've got one of the best defenses in the conference, and they had the Big Ten's leading rusher from last year in Kyle Monangai returning. Everything is adding up for a Rutgers win, especially with home field advantage here. If UCLA can't stop the run, they're not going to win this game. I don't envision them being able to stop the run. The defensive line loses so much. The front 7 as a whole loses so much. Give me Rutgers to get the win, and UCLA goes from 2-0 to 2-5 just like that. Well, then they come out of their bye week, and then it's another road game. So, yeah, their bye week is kind of like being at home, but then they got to go back east again to take on Nebraska. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous the schedule UCLA was dealt. It really is a shame. But this Nebraska team, guys, is a very good defensive team. Yikes. I mean, how fitting. Penn State, good defense. Rutgers, good defense. Nebraska, good defense. Iowa, good defense. I mean, they're facing a lot of great teams here for an offense that's going to have a lot of questions. But Nebraska, guys, tough home field advantage, improved quarterback play with Dylan Raiola. Gabe Ervin returning at running back was going to have a big year last year before he got injured. And Nebraska, the defensive line is extremely strong. If UCLA hasn't fixed their offensive line, we believe they will. But if they haven't, Garbers is going to be under pressure all day long. So despite being off that week of rest, really don't see them having a shot at beating Nebraska on the road. They come back home to take on Iowa, one of the best defensive teams in the country, and an Iowa team that I think finally improves offensively. I actually think UCLA owns the offensive edge in this game, unless Iowa plays lights-out ball earlier in the year. They got a new offensive coordinator in Tim Lester. Cade McNamara should be fully healthy. So Iowa's going to be better than people realize. This is still a team that's coming off their third 10-win season the last 5 years. But this defense is what's going to carry them. It's what carried them last year. And I do believe USC is going to struggle to move the ball quite a bit against the Hawkeyes. First meeting against Iowa since the 1985 Rose Bowl, so a little bit of a reunion there, but they do fall. So they are just on a horrible, horrible losing streak, not because necessarily this team is devoid of talent, but because of how bad the schedule is. They then go on the road to Washington to renew that rivalry from Pac-12 play. How fitting, these two teams are now Big Ten members, so kind of cool to see those matchups there. This is a Washington team that is winnable. They're beatable after they lose so much from last year. Kalen DeBoer is gone, and Penix is gone, and the entire offense is practically gone. But Washington's still going to have a little too much for UCLA to handle. Will Rogers coming in at quarterback from Mississippi State. It's a very good quarterback transfer, really good replacement for Michael Penix. The defense for Washington, I don't think will be as bad as people realize. I think by this point in the year, the Huskies have maybe figured things out. Maybe are in the running for a bowl game. Obviously, at this point, UCLA would not be. So I do think they're going to fall to Washington. They play another Pac-12 opponent in USC, who they did beat by 18 points last year. But both these teams so different. Yes, both teams lose so much. They're under new leadership in certain aspects. UCLA, the whole thing. USC, defensively, is what held them back. Well, Deanton Lynn, who coached UCLA's defense last year, is now the defensive coordinator at USC. And that defense is going to be a lot better than people realize with 9 starters back. So all that being said, quarterback edge goes to USC. Defensive edge goes to USC. Explosiveness edge to USC. Coaching edge, USC. The Trojans get revenge. They win this game. UCLA is 2-9 entering the final week of the season against Fresno State, and I will give them a win there. Fresno State, yes, has won 4 straight over UCLA. The Bruins have lost 4 consecutive games to Fresno State. Not in 4 consecutive years, but 4 consecutive games. But after Fresno State lost Jeff Tedford, choosing to step down again just a few weeks ago, I'm not saying Fresno State's going to be in for a bad year, but losing him so close to the season is definitely going to put a damper on this team. They've got the talent to beat UCLA. They will play UCLA close. But on senior day, the Bruins finish with a little bit of momentum, finish on a slight high, and clinch a 3-9 season. That's not ideal, guys. I know it's not. The Minnesota game is winnable. Washington is winnable. You could argue USC is winnable. If you're trying to find a path to a bowl game, those are the 3 most likely wins. And honestly, I would say Minnesota and Washington more so than that of USC. But the Bruins, to me, are not a bowl team this year. Deshaun Foster is going to go through some growing pains in his first ever head coaching gig. Eric Bieniemy, as great as he was in NFL to college is a completely different game. And again, he does not have NFL caliber talent on the offensive side of the ball like he had during his time in Kansas City. The defense still needs tons and tons of work after losing so much production from last year. It's going to be a transition period. This is a new coach with new players heading into a new conference. UCLA essentially hit the reboot button, said we are looking to restart. Give us a fresh start in the Big Ten. We are prepared to go through this rebuild. I believe Deshaun Foster is the guy that can rebuild the program and get them to where they need to be, but it will not be this year. 3-9 for the Bruins. Better times, though, are ahead. So, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos. Check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com. Our exclusive expert picks can be found over there. Some of the best spread picks in the country. We want you to take advantage of all that and become a member of our GE Nation. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.